Well, good people, this is the latest iteration of the Lancool series. This is the Lancool III. They don't even call it mesh anymore because it is just part of the DNA. And just an FYI, it is no longer born to push limit, it is now born to excel. The new boxes are extremely heavy. Make sure to engage that core and lift with your legs.
Shall we do the peel?
So this thing, of course, has a lot of similarities to the Lancool II mesh, but it's an entirely new enclosure and frame. So it's 20% larger in volume versus the Lancool II mesh, and it's also almost twice the price at launch versus the previous one. The price ranges from $149 to $169 depending on the fan configuration you get. Although taking into account shipping prices and prices in general, the price difference between the Lancool III and the Lancool II mesh is about $30. So it's not that significant, and if you're still looking for a solid, more compact mid-tower, the Lancool II mesh should still be considered. This is not replacing it, it's just another iteration. So one of the biggest differences is the front panel. As you can see, it's still mesh, but look at how you get inside the case. So we have these aluminum sections at the front that are part of the front panel. So no longer do you have to open this tiny bottom one and pry the glass open. We have these dedicated sort of opening sections at the front. So that means you don't have to touch the glass. That's awesome, unless you are closing it. But alternatively, because this is brushed aluminum, it's gonna get gunky and dirty very quickly because you are actually interacting with it. I recommend cleaning this immediately after use. So this is not really an issue for the white model because the aluminum here is sandblasted, so different texture, does not reveal any fingerprints. And you also have to be careful when you are releasing the mechanism because it is on a spring, it is also on a plastic clip, so don't pull too hard, otherwise this thing might snap. The I/O between the two models is the same in terms of USB 3 ports, a Type-C, power reset switches, combined audio jacks, but the RGB model gets the mode and color switches for the RGB fans. Now you know. Let's hear a message from our sponsor.
The all-new wireless range from Xtrfy. The absolutely awesome MZ1 now made wireless to give you a confidence teardrop boost. The M4 wireless is the perfect ergo shape because shape is king, my friends, and the M42 wireless with the asymmetric body for all the grips to shine. All mice charged with USB-C have a swappable back and adjustable weight distribution, are super lightweight, and have 75 hours of battery life. Forget the cable, start gaming. Check out the Xtrfy MZ1, the M4, and the M42 wireless below.
The bottom mesh panels open just like before to reveal our hard drive storage and your power supply area. They are attached, or this thing is attached to the frame with magnets, so there's no physical secure way to attach it to the frame, but I don't see that as an issue anyway. The magnets are fairly strong. Because of the release wings, removing the front panel is a little bit more challenging, so I would recommend sliding the top panel back, getting nice grip on the corners, and pulling. Alright, so now you have full access to the front panel and this fan bracket. Man, it is still amazing, and they've done some improvements too. Now we can remove all the panels. The top mesh just sits on a thumb screw, easy peasy. The side glass has to be fully open and then just slide up, nothing securing there. The same thing on the other side. Since we've already removed the front panel, this thing should just slide forward. Let's just get this one. Okay, sometimes that happens. Looks like I forgot to remove this plastic peg that sits on the corner of the tempered glass panel for transportation purposes, so no longer need that. This is the raw frame. Let's talk about some of the cool things inside. So this power supply bracket has a lot of functionality. First of all, you can mount 3 SSDs facing the rear, so each individual sort of square can do either an SSD or a 120mm fan, which is awesome. You can also slightly move this bracket forward to give you a little bit more clearance away from the PCI slots. You do lose out like a finger length of clearance for the front stuff, but this thing supports up to a 360mm radiator or 3 120mm fans. This is awesome if you want to have additional airflow for your GPU side, or if you want to go full crazy water cooling. And it is spaced out away from the motherboard, so it's not going to interfere unless of course you have something populated in those bottom PCI slots. I really like how the frame over here is cut to allow unrestricted access for the thumb screws. this is the way it should be done. In typical Lancool fashion, the bottom mesh panel can be utilized for additional storage, so up to 3 SSDs can be mounted here. Obviously, you want to be facing these cavities, so we have additional clearance for all your cables. This whole thing can also be removed completely if you want to just use the mesh by itself, and we have 2 dedicated SSD caddies right here. The cable management bracket can be loosened up with 2 thumb screws at the back, and you have full range of mobility, allowing you to install an eATX motherboard without losing the functionality of this thing. You know, it is angled, so in this ATX format, you can pass your main cables through like the large rubber grommets, but then have a little bit of room underneath for all the tiny things that don't need to exit from the main grommets. That's pretty clever. You can mount up to 4 3.5-inch drives in the bottom section over here. So these individual drive cages have an individual caddy. So right there, it's the metal caddy. You have to remove it from the front over here. It's a little bit of a difficult to access thumb screw, but what's cool is that you can remove the individual cages if you want to just clear up all this room. And once one of them is removed, you have full flexibility for mobility if you want to have a little bit more clearance from the power supply, or you want to have a little bit more clearance from the front. So that's pretty awesome. And you can also stack the drive caddies into a single drive cage to utilize both of them. Nice. The case by default comes with 4 140mm fans. That is absolutely insane if you want to get the best out of the box cooling performance. We'll talk about temperatures later. So RGB fans for the RGB version, standard fans for non, and they have slight variation in the RPM. But the coolest thing about this enclosure is this front fan bracket. Let me show you. I would say it's one of the most innovative fan brackets here. So it releases with this push to release mechanism because you can secure it with thumb screws just in case you don't want it to rattle around and be fully secured. This thing will support up to 3 140s and 120s and up to a 360 radiator. The coolest thing though is that this whole thing is very modular, so you can remove it, install everything, and put it back together. But look at this. You can rotate it. And in this configuration, the fan mounts are facing you, so you have a little bit easier access to, let's say, install the fans or remove some stuff. But even cooler is this deeper cavity. With this configuration, you can have both the radiator and the fans on this side of the frame without interference with the front panel, so that's all awesome. And also you can rotate it. Rotating it allows for you to mount the radiator, for example, on the inside and a set of fans on this side for that sandwich style. Yeah, so lots of flexibility, my friends. Of course, for a case of this size, having a 140 at the rear is a must, but check out all this clearance from the top panel. The top fan bracket is absolutely loaded, 2 screws, and it is removable for easier installation of all your components, and there's only one way to insert it back in, so there's no confusion. This thing can mount up to a 420 radiator, which is absolutely insane. There's a fill port over here, and yeah, lots of flexibility for mounting anything at the top. Also, there's just enough clearance from the top panel so none of the screws will bump into this top mesh. If like me you hate cable management, have no fear, the Lancool III has got you covered. So first of all, we have these covers that hide all the mess that you might create, and they are easily removable, so that's easy. The only thing to keep in mind about this rear panel is that the only opening is right at the bottom, so all the cables must pass on this side, because if there's anything passing right behind the CPU cutout, this thing won't sit flush against the case. But, I mean, the cables are long enough these days anyway. So we have some Velcros over here to route some of the bigger stuff, and everything is already pre-routed for the default fans and everything from the front panel, which, by the way, can be moved from the top to the bottom. The procedure is straightforward, 2 screws, and you just mount this module at the bottom of the case. It has all the holes and everything, and the reason for this is to clear up all these cables, because there are plenty of them from the front IO, so that if you do mount a radiator and anything, it will not interfere with these cables. That's pretty clever. Also clever is this Lian Li logo on the front panel. 2 screws in the back, and you mount it on the opposite side right here, so nothing feels out of whack. Now, a few more notable bits and bobs over here. This plastic case is included with every Lancool III that allows you to populate some thumb screws and stuff, and everything, all your accessories are already inside. I love that feature. Fantex used to do it, now they don't, and now Lian Li is jumping on this plastic bandwagon. Now on the inside, everything is roomy. It supports really tall CPU towers, massive GPUs. You can mount a pump or reservoir right beside the motherboard. There's still plenty of space even with an eATX motherboard. So the experience is just what you would expect from a standard 2022 full tower and above. I will say, however, that the black version is total blackout. There's no shape to it unless you add some light to reveal some stuff on the enclosure, as you can see. And that is why I prefer the white model, because it has a little bit more character, because the shape, the perforation is slightly more visible. As for temperatures, what we were expecting, it's exactly the type of result you would get if you have 4 140 milliliter included fans inside the enclosure. So CPU temperatures are totally fine. GPU temperatures are perfectly fine. So just as they were with the Lancool II mesh, if you're looking for kind of really good performance out of the box, this is the way to go. Although I will say that the fractal torrent cases, because of those massive 200 milliliter intake fans at the front, you do gain slight advantage. So that's a potential win for you if you're looking for like the best out of the box performance. But those fans are slightly less interchangeable if you want to swap something out there, and those fans, you cannot use them for much else inside the case anyway. So the Lancool III, in terms of the user experience, in terms of hardware compatibility, in terms of cooling, everything is a check mark. And the price point, $149 to $169, depending on the the model and the color. It is what it is in today's market. The only thing is you have to be mindful that it's all steel, pretty much all steel, and it is extremely heavy. It's like one of the heaviest cases I've worked with in the past 6 months or so. So just keep that in mind. Take care of your back. All right, guys, I'm Dmitry. Thanks so much for watching. Check out this other relevant content. Subscribe for more. If you have any thoughts on the Lancool III, let me know in the comments below. I'll talk to you in the next video.